Our second reading comes from Genesis chapter 1. It's the first of the two creation stories, and I'll read till chapter 2, verse 4. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness was called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. And now, if I could be so bold, I'm going to skip the third, fourth, and fifth days of God's creating process when a lot of things happen, like the creation of the sun and the moon, along with the miracle of fish and birds. And I'm going to pick up with the sixth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind and the cattle of every kind and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish in the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animal of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all of the earth, and every tree with seeds in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that she had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that she had done, and she rested on the seventh day from all the work that she had done. God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that had been done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. If you ask a group of people, "Are you creative or not?" what percentage of people do you think would say, "Yes, I am creative"? Not many. Let's do a sample in this room. If you would say, "Yes, I am creative," raise your hand. Oh, look, we have a creative congregation who's not afraid to claim it. I love it. Well, one study showed that only 39% answered affirmatively, and when the study was conducted again a few years later, it went up only to 41%. So less than half of people are comfortable describing themselves as creative. Do you know who I blame for that? God and the creation story in Genesis. Just think about it. In this poetic story, God creates every miracle of nature out of nothing with seemingly ease, displaying no hesitation about their choices. Can you imagine inventing night and day, sky and sea, and then stepping back to examine your work and simply declaring it good? An absolute display of justified arrogance. Maybe some of us would have preferred a different color sky. Forget sky blue. And let's just say that inventing gender has brought about plenty of societal problems. And I'm sorry, but the decision to give humans dominion over everything was risky business, to say the least. At worst, an absolute tragic decision. Furthermore, few of us seem very good at embedding sacred rest into our rhythms. God is clearly more comfortable with chaos than the rest of us. But all jokes aside, maybe we are reluctant to use and share our creativity because we're too worried about our creations being very good. If nothing else, this story reminds us that at the beginning of God's creating was you. You are not only part of God's creation, but you are the result of God's creativity. Your lineage involves imagining things and working to bring them to life, and then being satisfied, no matter the outcome. The satisfaction is for the creative act itself, the artistic impulse, not the end result. The output hardly matters, except we tend to overemphasize it as all that matters. I think we should borrow the title of our first reading from the video earlier when thinking about our own creativity. How will I cultivate my orange energy today? What is described in the creation story are the very things that make us human, things artificial intelligence can't replicate. AI doesn't have an actual imagination, it can only source ours. And in the midst of doing so, it occasionally hallucinates and leads us astray. AI can't use its senses to marvel at the stars in the sky or know what it's like to rest after a long, hard day's work. It does, however, declare things very good. In fact, it thinks every harebrained idea we have is brilliant, which is what makes interacting with it so appealing. There is no risk of rejection. It affirms whatever you already think. And as a society, we will turn to it more and more and turn to each other less and less. And while the connection we feel with it is a temporary balm, if we let it mimic intimate connection, we will end up feeling lonelier than ever. Even the Pope is doling out urgent warnings about AI. Pope Leo published a document called Magnifica Humanitas on safeguarding the human persons in the time of artificial intelligence. The encyclical alerts the Roman Catholic Church and the rest of us to a present crisis facing all of humanity. Leo writes that we must remember that technologies exist to be at the service of the human person. They must not become a form of control or exploitation. The sense of danger in the document is palpable, especially in its recurring theme of the inadequacy of governments in the face of these threats. Leo writes that the main driver of technological developments are private parties that are endowed with resources and the capacity to intervene that surpasses those of many governments. AI tends to amplify the power of those who already possess economic resources, expertise, and access to data. Technologies and economic developments have made the rich richer, the powerful more powerful. Throughout history, in the best of cases, governments have been those institutions that could speak for the voiceless and challenge the power of great wealth. But our institutions are not up to the challenges we face as the world anticipates its first trillionaire soon. Leo affirms and puts it this way: the creative intelligence of humanity is a gift that can alleviate suffering and open up new possibilities, but it must remain ordered towards the common good, justice, the care of the vulnerable, and creation. I've gone on a bit of a tangent, albeit a relevant one, with these warnings about AI, but I want to get back to human creativity. I asked Karen Clemente, who couldn't be here today. I was able to have a really good conversation with her. She's been teaching dance in higher education for 36 years, and I asked her if she's comfortable calling herself a creative person and an artist. She said yes, but that took time. When I asked her what helped, she named a few things. One was having to advocate for her art in the face of skepticism at the colleges she's worked, where she had to insist and fight for what she knows to be true, that artistic scholarship is on par with other scholarship. She made the case that writing a score or creating a work of art should be equivalent to any written paper. The art is the text, she loves to say. It tells the story through creative expression. The other thing that Karen thinks helps our creativity is finding a co-conspirator to collaborate with. That's exactly what she did when she decided to learn this really challenging tap performance called Leon Collins Routine Number 1. She recruited her friend Julie to do it with her. And in a moment, Terry's gonna bring up a photo so that you can see the two of them together and also just see Karen in her element there. Isn't that a great photo of her? So she recruited her friend to do it with her. They worked with an established dance company called Tap Ties that is committed to honoring the tradition of Black tap masters. She told me how hard it was and how she felt inept at times, but this voice in her head kept saying, well, you committed to this and you're not gonna give up now. Instead of giving up, she asked people in the company if they would meet her outside of rehearsal time for extra practice. She tamed her imposter syndrome with her wiser inner voice and said, it's a process, keep at it, you know how to do this. Just put in the work. She said, in the midst of the toil, you ask yourself, how is all of this chaos gonna come together? But Karen has enough experience to know that it will. The lights will come up and the show will happen. This is the night we have. She also reminded herself of her why. She wanted to honor this legacy not just by reading about the history, but knowing it in her body. After the performance, which went relatively well, she could tell you exactly where and how she had messed up parts of the dance. But she stayed firm, saying, I would do it again. I know it could be better. She turned to Julie and said, let's keep this dance alive. Let's talk about the creative process through the lens of another artist. What do you hear when you sit in silence? For artist Rose B. Simpson, that question is the beginning of all art. She comes from a line of ceramic artists stretching back generations, and as part of her multidisciplinary work, she also builds custom lowrider cars. If that sounds like a contradiction, that's kind of the point. Simpson is a mixed media artist from Santa Clara, Pueblo, New Mexico. Her work engages ceramic sculpture, metals, fashion, performance, music, installation, writing, and custom cars. I listened to a fascinating TED Talk interview with her, and it was called How to Invite Creativity into Your Life. She creates these great anthropomorphic sculptures, and Terry's gonna bring an image up for us. This is her at work in her studio and some samples of her art. She shared that often her sculptures don't have any hair, but they have parts that relate to our five senses. And when she cuts the clay to create their eyes, she always greets them with a, hello, welcome. When Rose is asked to do a public art piece, she goes to the space and sits there for a while. She asks and waits. What needs to be here? What stories need to be told? How can I be of service? When she speaks of her 1985 El Camino named Maria that she painted to look like indigenous pottery, she says this, she used me to make her into what she was always meant to be. I just listened. When she advises young artists, she reminds them of the phrase, don't yuck my yum. Your job is to let go of thought and find your yum and keep refining that yum. What you find delicious. She insists that we have so much to learn that if we just shut up and listen to the soul of the things that are beyond human. As artists, we are vessels of transformation. You look at something, see what it can be, and then you begin. Afterwards, you say, thank you for choosing me to be part of your becoming. My inner circle is full of creators, including many of you here. We have writers, actors, crafters, poets, photographers, stained glass makers, musicians, and more. I have a few creative examples to share. We're going to bring up a few more slides. On the left is a drawing that my daughter Pelham made with paint markers. And the image on the right was, we put in a prompt into AI to see if they could make something similar. We had a strong preference for the human one. And then if we go to the next slide, this is a photo of a pigeon that Michelle Hatchell crocheted as a gift for her 6-year-old friend, Audie. Pigeons hold a special place in Michelle's heart as symbols of peace and love. And in the middle picture, you'll see that Audie named the creation pigeon and gave it a sleeping bag and nest to sleep in because creativity breeds creativity. Thank you, Terry. We are all bursting with creativity. Let yours out. You too are a vessel of transformation. Ask what needs to be here. What story needs to be told? How can I be of service? Push yourself knowing that what you create does not have to be very good. Or rather, it is very good simply because you created it. And after the making process, you can turn to your creation and say, hello, welcome. Thank you for choosing me to be part of your becoming. Or maybe just before the performance, you'll be blessed enough to hear Karen Clemente's voice saying, the show is happening. The lights are on. This is the night that we have. Somehow all of this chaos will come together. I'll close by returning to the words of our first reading, Orange Energy. All I want to do is delight. Throw the mask off, not care, not worry, not explain what I meant, nor define what I do. Just be whatever I feel like being. Just relish in the energy of the moment. I want to be so alive that I feel like the moon, throwing tides just for fun, creating because it's what I'm here to do. This is the good news of God. Amen.